Of 4 sessions for Beating the Winter Blues. This session will be recorded, so you're welcome to push continue on your screen in front of you. Now, just as a reminder, we won't be able to see your face because this is a webinar format, so you'll just be seeing the presenters. My name is Shannon Carter, and I'm an Ohio State University Extension educator. I work in Fairfield County, and I'm pleased to start our session off which is again one of 4. And I will have colleagues joining me from across our state to conduct the remaining 3 sessions. So today, in talking about Beating the Winter Blues, we're going to really give kind of an introduction to our whole series, but we'll focus in on a few key points that won't be covered in later series as well. So helping today also is Amy Meehan, who is going to be putting some of our resources in chat and helping with that as well. You maybe have seen some of the chat comments already. I've asked folks to share what some of their favorite winter hobbies are, so you're welcome to continue doing that as we start here. But in case you are brand new to Extension, I wanted to let you know just a little bit about what we do. We are considered the statewide campus of Ohio State University. In fact, we have a county office in every county in Ohio. Extension is part of a national network, and we're united with the land grant system across the United States. We bring research-based information from our university to the communities that we serve. So I encourage you to seek out Extension in an office near you, wherever you may live. Today, we are going to look at several key components for beating the winter blues. We're going to look at some symptoms of what winter and pandemic blues are. We will define seasonal affective disorder, and we'll learn some tips for beating the winter blues, focusing around these 4 areas of coping with stress, taking care of yourself, connecting with others, and then identifying where to get help. Finally, we'll set a SMART goal to help us beat these blues. So I'd like to start off with a poll and ask, how does winter affect you? And so thank you. Amy has put up the poll. You'll see that maybe you can answer as many that apply to you. Appetite or sleep changes, energy level changes. Maybe you change how you feel, less social, more tired. Or maybe winter, maybe none of these are symptoms that affect you and you're just maybe listening for a friend or a family member. So in general, people who do notice a set of different symptoms in the winter tend to see some similar things around some of these questions that we're asking here. So we'll give those another few seconds to come in. Looks like many of you have cast your vote already. So here's how our votes came in. It looks like energy level was the top symptom of how winter affects people on our poll today, followed by feeling tired or sluggish and even depressed. So thank you for participating if you had a chance to do that. I'm going to stop sharing the results. If you would like to move that screen, the poll screen, remove it from your screen, all you need to do is click the X in the corner. But yes, in general, a lot of people find that they might have more aches and pains. Winter affects them physically. They might feel tired or sluggish. It affects us emotionally sometimes with anger, anxiety, depression, maybe feeling out of control. Also can make us feel maybe easily irritated. So there's lots of different ways that winter can affect us. And there's a reason for that. We have those colder temperatures that bring on natural aches and pains in many of us. We also have shorter days with fewer hours of daylight. And this decrease in natural light in the winter months can actually change one's brain chemistry. We have 2 neurotransmitters. There's a neurotransmitter called serotonin that drops in the winter months. And then there's melatonin, which helps promote sleep. And that increases in winter months. And you have the combination of changes in these 2 brain chemicals that can actually lead to mild depression. So if you have felt some of these things come on, in your own life, You may be wondering why. Well, it's nice to know there's a scientific reason for that. And you're also not alone for sure. So many of us feel a little down in the winter months with some of these symptoms or maybe some others, feeling sluggish or sleepy, increased or decreased appetite, depressed mood, or feeling less social. So these are things that we tend to call the winter blues. Now, sometimes people have a more serious condition that we call seasonal affective disorder or SAD. And that is a type of depression that's, again, it's related to changes in the seasons. It begins and ends about the same time every year. It's, typically for people, most of the time it starts in the fall and continues into the winter months. So this depression is actually diagnosable. It's described as a period of 2 or more weeks of depressed mood or lost interest, lost pleasure in daily activities, and many of these specified symptoms. Now, there are some things that can increase your risk of SAD, and that includes being female. It's diagnosed 4 times more often in women than in men. A big factor is how far we live from the equator. So here in Ohio, in the Northern Hemisphere, we are quite a bit from the equator, which means less daylight and sunlight. So here's an example to compare. 1% of those who live in Florida experience SAD compared to 9% who live in New England or Alaska. So that's quite a bit of difference just based on geography. Also, family history can make a difference. People with a family history of other types of depression might be more likely to develop SAD. Also, younger age, and I thought this was interesting, younger adults have a higher risk of SAD than older adults. It's even been reported in children and teens. Now, the causes of SAD are unknown, but again, some of these risk factors and symptoms are things to pay attention to, and we'll look at some of these symptoms as well. Again, these sound like the winter blues, but they may be a little more pronounced. Changes in appetite or weight, and changes in sleep patterns, decreased energy, inability to concentrate or irritability, and social withdrawal, sometimes even with sadness, anxiety, or hopelessness. So these, again, a little bit more severe than the winter blues, but you add on that now what we're experiencing here in this pandemic, and we kind of have a juncture of both of these things going on right now. So as the world finds its way through these uncharted waters of this pandemic, you might find yourself navigating your own course. We've had stay-at-home orders, canceled events, limited gatherings, and everyone is experiencing isolation and loss on some level. And perhaps you've even suffered from depression at some point this year. I know I struggled in the summer and there was plenty of sunlight outside then. Well, I want you to know that you are not alone. A mid-summer poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation found that over half of the US adults indicated the pandemic has affected our mental health, and how could it not? So we have found the Centers for Disease Control relates to us that the stress from pandemics can bring about these types of responses. Fear and worry about health, whether it's yours or a loved one's health, fear and worry about jobs or finances, concern about the loss of some support services that you may depend on, changes in sleeping or eating patterns, inability to concentrate or focus, decline of health conditions, increase of mental health problems, and even increased use of tobacco, alcohol, or other substances. So this pandemic has taken a toll on so many people's health, including our mental health. A survey from the National Center for Health Statistics shows that nearly 30% of people are experiencing some form of clinical depression, compared to just 6% at the same time last year. And part of the reason for this depression and how we're all struggling with this pandemic is the sudden amount and rate of change that we all had to adapt to with no preparation. So we felt the impact of this pandemic very harshly. It was such an abrupt change. Well, some of those changes we might have started to get used to and think of it as, maybe a temporary change. But then as the months have worn on, it seems like this has shifted to a new normal. And there has been a significant uptick in depression as people look at the world around them and realize it may be a little while longer before we can get back to what we used to know as normal. So additionally, these COVID-19 restrictions that we've all experienced can trigger depressive symptoms like disengagement, isolation, and then we no longer find enjoyment in things that we once found pleasurable. So these are this is all the downside. Well, we're gonna turn it around from here. And even though there's so much that is out of our control, there are some things that we can do to take care of ourselves and take care of those around us. So the good news is there are strategies we can use to take care of our mind and body, to lift our moods, even in the winter. So we're going to start with a few under the main umbrella of coping with stress. It's one of my favorite areas, so we'll take a little time on this. One of my colleagues in Extension, Sherry Gallup, developed a handout called Learn to Keep Calm. And it has very simple tools on it that you can practice anywhere, anytime. And the first of those tools is called the simple touch. And it talks about how important touch is to the human body. So, just the simple act of a hug or a handshake or a touch from someone else, that feeling on your skin releases this chemical in our bodies called oxytocin, which is known as a feel-good chemical. And so for those of you who may not have another person in your household, maybe you live alone, but maybe you have a pet. Pets can give us that same sort of feeling, hugging a pet. If you don't have a pet, you can hug a stuffed animal. And also you can, anywhere you are, just take your own hands and cup them around your face. And you can do some deep breaths and tell yourself it's going to be okay. And just to feel that. So the other simple tool on that Learn to Keep Calm handout is called the 4-7-8 breath. And you probably have seen that a time or two. And that is simply just a way to slow down our breathing. It actually starts with an exhale. So you exhale through your mouth, and you can even make a whoosh sound. You can practice it now with me if you want. So then you inhale for a count of 4. Hold for 7. And then exhale again to a count of 8 through your mouth, making a whoosh sound. So that can certainly slow down your breathing. Perhaps you might notice a difference even after just one of those breath cycles. If you can do 3 to 5 of those breath cycles, or even several minutes, that will bring down your respiration rate, will bring down your heart rate, can help calm your blood pressure. And that's just a really powerful thing that we all have our breath with us anytime, and we can use that to help us to get a sense of calmness and keep that calmness as well. I noticed someone, it looked like you raised your hand. I had something pop up on my screen. If you want to put a question in chat, you are welcome to do that. Some other ways to cope with stress include being mindful in the moment. Those things we talked about that both the winter and pandemic blues can affect is our ability to concentrate. Well, mindfulness is one of those things that can really help us with that. So there's lots of different ways to be mindful. And in fact, OSU Extension has a lot of resources on mindfulness as well. But I'll just give you a few examples today. So have you ever noticed when you're talking with someone, we tend to do this with preschoolers a lot because they talk very fast, and sometimes we don't keep up or tune in with them, and we kind of do the but you really don't know what they said. Well, sometimes we do that with adults, with anyone that we're talking to. So we just miss the conversation that was right in front of us. So one of the ways to try to be mindful in the moment is, look at the person who's talking with you, listen to what they're saying, and stop having that tape play or that recording play in your own mind of things that you're going to do or say next. But just to kind of clear that away and just be present. Another thought is to taste whatever it is you're eating or drinking. If you're having that cup of coffee, do you really ever taste it, or you just kind of gulp it down and move to the next thing? So sometimes mindfulness is the simple things about just learning to kind of remember where you are in time and space. And we have a phrase on our mindfulness team we use that says, I'm here and it's right now. And that's what we have at our disposal, is the here and now. One term that we kind of have made up here, and you'll see next there, is called unitask. And the best way to describe that is to describe the opposite of it, which is multitasking. And that's described as the ability to do many things all at once, which if you think about it, it's kind of impossible to do that. What you're really doing is switching your attention between many different things. So unitasking means maybe focusing on just one thing at a time whenever possible. It's not possible to do this all the time, and sometimes we have to multitask because our jobs or our lives demand it. But unitask means maybe closing different applications on your computer so you can have just that one thing open. It might mean trying to put away some of the things on your desk or your countertop or wherever your workspace is so that you're only looking at that one thing. And it's almost like a brain break. It's a gift to your brain to be able to do just one thing at a time. When that thing's done, then you can move on to the next one. Now, unitasking works really well with the next tip, which is taking time away from technology. And Jenny will do a whole session on this next week. So I hope you can come back because it's excellent. But the constant pace of all the notifications that we get through all different forms of technology is really taxing on our brains. And it's hard to be mindful in the moment when you're so distracted by all of those. So certainly learning to just shut off the computer can be helpful. Other ways of coping with stress, distracting yourself from the stress of this pandemic by taking up a new hobby or just finding something that adds purpose or joy to your life. And if you feel free to scroll back through the chat, people have been adding some wonderful hobbies and things that they enjoy doing. Well, just the idea and the practice of seeking a new experience can transform us to see our world or our situation with new eyes, maybe even find new purpose in life. So try to find something new. It might just spur you on to something greater, something simple like cooking something you've never tried before, or challenge yourself to write a short story about three unrelated things. Trying a new hobby, being creative. We can actually get lost in time when we're creating something. Art activities like drawing, painting, coloring, photography, writing, all of those things are naturally mindful and they can be a great way to calm your mind, improve your capacity for focus and concentration. And some people like to journal, and that's another way to, again, kind of put those thoughts down. Learning new things and engaging in hobbies, things like practicing gratitude, all of those engage our brain and contribute to creativity, which again creates a sense of purpose and overall wellness. So these are just some of the ways that we can try to beat those winter blues by coping with stress. So colleague of mine, Jenny, wrote this blog article on two lists, and it was gratitude and loss. And if you think back through the last 10 months of all the things that you maybe have lost, and perhaps it's been an event that you didn't get to go to, or a family that you didn't get to see. So our expectations might have been a family sit down Thanksgiving dinner where we're all gathered around and had no idea what was coming from us ahead of time from last year. But the reality is, instead we logged onto the computer and checked in individually with our, as individuals with our extended family that we couldn't see this year. So if you're interested in checking more into that, Amy has put that in the blog post. A great way that you can take care of yourself is getting plenty of sleep. Sleep helps provide energy to our brain and body. That's when our cells and tissues are repaired. And we produce valuable hormones during sleep that actually contribute to our mood. And adults should aim for 7 to 9 hours a night. I don't know when the last time you got a good night's sleep is, but perhaps you can make that a priority to maintain a regular bed and wake time. Turning off electronics at least an hour before bedtime can really help because the lights from those electronics can disrupt the melatonin production. And remember, that's the hormone that regulates our sleep patterns. And then creating a dark, cool, quiet, comfortable room to sleep in. Take care of yourself by eating healthy, well-balanced meals. There's no substitute for good nutrition to fuel your body and mind. You can also take care of yourself by getting moving, getting outside and taking walks and spending time in nature. Misty is going to talk a lot more next week about getting moving through some creative ways, both exercise and physical activity as well. Another important way to beat the winter blues is to connect with others and to do that safely. Even though it's natural for us to want to hibernate during the winter, it's really important that we connect. And so maybe you can make a date with a friend to socialize. And even if you can't be face to face with family or friends, are there ways that you connect with them? Phone calls, cards, social media, any kind of online video calls. Um, and it's important for us to just talk to others that we trust about how we feel and what our concerns are. And another thing is to connect with our community. And a way to do that is to volunteer. Maybe there's some local charities you can donate to, make a family event out of donating some food or clothing or money. And there's even a way to be a virtual volunteer. In some communities, they have opportunities for that. Perhaps you could, call shut-ins or do something like that. There's a website called powerof.org. So the words power and of put together.org. That you can search that by zip code to see if there's something in your area. And it's so important to play and laugh. When's the last time you had a really good laugh? Well, if it's been a while, you are in luck because Larissa is going to be finishing off this series at the end of the month with a great session on laughter. And so when I taught this session last, I had we had a snow in Central Ohio, and my whole family was experiencing a snow day. They were in-person school at the time. My husband's a teacher, and I have 2 teenagers. And my teenagers were already outside playing in the snow. I was working from home on my computer, and I was meeting with a team of colleagues. And my husband decided he wanted to go out and check out the snow. So thankfully, my computer was on mute because I started laughing, and I was laughing so hard, I was crying. And my colleagues wanted to know what I was laughing at. They said, okay, you got to tell us. So I shared with them that over here in the corner of my dining room, my husband is trying to put on some snow pants, and he had this look of disgust and concern on his face, and this dance he did to try and get these pants on, and it was too funny. So I and my colleagues had this laugh at my husband's expense. Well, later we found his snow pants and realized he had put on my snow pants. So that's why they didn't fit, and the laugh was on me. So just finding things to laugh at, and in the simple things around you can make a big difference. Also, one way to feel empowered, even in a pandemic when things are out of control, is to learn the facts and know where to get help. Knowing the real facts about COVID can actually reduce stress and help you feel more empowered. It's better than the unknown. And again, would encourage you to seek out reliable sources for that, like the CDC. Also, knowing what to do if you're sick. The first step would be contacting your healthcare professional. But if you have these steps in place and kind of know what those are ahead of time, then absolutely it can help you kind of just have that plan and be ready. Locating support services and resources like where to get treatment, and also counseling or therapy. Now, a lot of places are offering telehealth right now, appointments for both medical and even counseling services. So certainly we would encourage you to seek help when needed. Some people ask questions about using a light therapy box has been known to sometimes help people with SAD. So that's something we would recommend that you speak with your doctor about. We also get questions about medication or even supplements like taking vitamin D. Again, that would be something that you could check with your doctor and ask. Again, vitamin D is one of those, it's a fat soluble vitamin, but it's also produced when we are outside in the sun. And the less time sunlight we have in the winter, the less vitamin D we're producing. So again, one of those things that could possibly be a factor. So we want to look at setting a SMART goal so that you can walk away from today's lesson as well as from the whole series and do something about it and make a change. So when we talk about a SMART goal, that stands for something specific, setting a goal that you can clearly name, and it's measurable. So maybe it's a number of minutes practicing breathing, or maybe it's a number of steps you hope to get in, or maybe it's a number of people you hope to connect with. One really neat example we had on lifting our own mood is to show gratitude to others. And I think the speaker said to text 3 before 10. So before 10 a.m. in the morning, text 3 people and just give them a little pick me up and a pat on the back, or just a show of appreciation for something that they've done. And that's certainly going to lift that person's day, but it works for the sender of that message as well. You also want to make sure that your SMART goal is attainable or achievable. Is this something that you can do given your time available and the resources that you have? Is it relevant? You want to make sure this goal fits your needs, and that's why no one else can set these goals for you. This is something that you can do to make it fit. And time bound, is there a specific target date for your goal? For example, I will use an app for deep breathing 5 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week. There's so many apps and other things available that you can use to track some of these things. With all these goals, we would recommend you start small to be able to make it stick. So again, centering your goals around one of these tips of coping with stress, taking care of yourself, connecting with others, and learning where to get help. What's one small change that you can make in this next week? But I want to encourage you to remember that spring is coming. Winter won't last forever, and neither will this virus. The vaccine is already making its way through. So although it may feel endless at times, spring is coming, and there will be some light here at the end of the tunnel. And we want you to use these tips to help take care of yourself and those around you to live healthy and well. Amy has been putting some great resources in our chat box. I hope you can take advantage of. These are some of the locations of the sources for information in today's program. I want to point out that OSU Extension has 2 blogs, livesmartohio.osu.edu, as well as livehealthyosu.com. If you want to contact me personally, my name again is Shannon Carter, and my email is carter.413@osu.edu. And this presentation, as well as coordinating our whole series, is with the help of Jenny Lobb. And then also to finish off today, we have a couple minutes. If any of you have any questions you want to share, you are welcome to do that. But I wanted to ask a favor. If you would fill out a brief 9-question, I think it takes about 3 minutes, it's called a triple ET, but it's just an evaluation of my teaching. And while Amy is popping that into chat box, there it is. You'll see a go link for that. Amy, I see that some folks have raised their hands. I'm not sure if we can unmute them that way.
If they would be able to use the question and answer feature, the Q&A, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can toggle your mouse over it and it should pop up if you want to throw your questions in there, or into chat. We'll be able to see them either way. That would probably be the easiest.
Great. Well, again, I want to thank you for your participation. If you have friends you want to invite back next week, I'll put that topic up. They are welcome to register and join this webinar series at any time. But next week we will have Jenny Lobb talking about beating the blues by unplugging. So it's kind of ironic that we have to plug in and watch this video, this webinar, in order to learn tools to do that, but it's really valuable, and she's looked up some great research. And someone is asking me to put up the resources slide again. Certainly I can do that. Oh, there it is. Well, I will remain on here for a couple minutes if anyone else has any other questions. But again, thank you for joining, and we'll hope to see you all back next week.